Yes, thank you for joining us. Okay, so once more we are delving onto number three and going to make this one short and still touching on Steve Jobs, where I felt that after looking at a little bit of the presentation that I just did, where I also did Steve Jobs in the numerical value of number six to show how six is seven, but I also felt that I need to give this a fair argument, if you like. Um, so we saw that Steve date of birth on both numbers. So I did the numerical value for the word 10 or the number 10. Now, because we are doing numerology, it'd be good for us to also look at the word or one, and we could see how I mentioned that the serpent was the present, or was present, or Mother Eve was also the serpent in the garden. I have done numerous presentations on that, and the word present and serpent are more or less synonymous. We could say that. And of course, just think about if a serpent is near you, I'm sure you would be present, not shutting your eye and deciding, oh no, I didn't see it, or let it just do whatever it is. Whether you were scared of snakes or not, I think you would pay attention to what is happening in that moment. So this is the now aspect that we are talking about. So I felt that although I looked at 10 to see that 10 is free, because we were talking about 3 anyway, or looking at the vibration of 3, or how 3 can manifest through us. Now, I have this emphasis on free. It's not really me emphasizing on that as such. I just feel 3 probably is emphasizing its characteristics on us more than we care to think. So that's why I'm taking the time to really look at number 3 again. So I also felt, as I said, looking at Steve Jobs. So Steve was 14, which is 8, and Jobs was 1, um, or 10, but it's 1, and that equals 9. Steve Jobs. I think I've got that correct. Because Steve is actually 17. Now we did see that God is equals 17. There was also something that I embarked on recently, that the word womb, because I speak of God and seeing the correlation of God and Mother Eve very much close. And that's what I think this was the very first essence of revelation that I got, that God saw everything that he did, it was good. And Eve, that scriptures, or the reference to the scriptures, and Eve saw it was good, and God saw that everything he made was good. And I saw that the word everything, or the word Eve, is in everything, and God saw everything he done was good. So why are we thinking that Eve did something bad? And it's just really this where the story may seem ambiguous, but I think it was pretty clear. But you need to be open-minded to be able to see that the mere fact that God is mentioned in one term does not mean that it could not be Eve. Or again, we see the stories have repeated themselves, like showing where Moses had the Moses also equals 17. So here we see the role playing. It's like God is a title here, because Moses was a god there. And of course it is said when he went up the mountain and he asked who, he had this dialogue. Don't we think are we not having dialogue with ourselves all the time? It's like, who am I? What am I? Where am I doing? And so on. He met with God. It's like where the answer and the revelation really comes. You know, it's like you feel you are being guided, or you are being you have a companion, and yes, you have guides, but they all part of who you are and your makeup. So these are the things that we need to be mindful of how we can use the vibrations or the numbers to really understand who we are. This is where, again, the answer to Moses' question of who should I say that I have seen, and the voice was, or the answer was, I am that I am. So we see the correlation here again. The I am is the same equivalent vibrational numerical value as Eve and as Christ. These are not happening by chance. Now we have Steve. Okay, so I felt that, of course, we see that that happens here, and I just felt that in Steve's date of birth, that which was 24th of the second, we add 2 plus 4 is 6, and 2 the month, 8, and 8 plus 2 is 10. So he had the same numerical value as his date of birth and his death and his exit into the other realm. That means they both were 10. So we could also say they both were 1. Just to look at, this is the part of what it is I wanted to mention. So that was 1. So he was born on a 1. He had a life path number 1. And when we do the numerical value for the word 1, which is 655, that gives us 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. So basically, I am still having more or less the same answer to what I did in looking at the word 10. We could say we looked at the word 10 and we saw 3. That gave us 3. Of course, if we did the numerical value for the word 3, that would be 11, and this is where we say that Steve had a master number, and even in that 1, so there would be 111. There's another thing that in fact I did come across where there were 3 ones. Just bear with me, on Steve. And okay, it's just that okay, all right, I'm going to perhaps leave it for now because I haven't seen it. So we have 1, and that would mean, so coinciding with the whole story of what we do here on this channel, is to understand that we are of 14 gods. And through numerology, we can see how those gods play out in our lives. And I'm feeling and sensing that the story of Job, as well as in Steve Jobs, is really confirming this message. And it tells me that Steve had gotten onto his path somewhere in his life, consciously or unconsciously. He understood his purpose. He understood who he was. He understood the guardianship that he was under. And so we have here that it's like as if this is the God, number 7. He came into with this number 7 because his life path number is really 1. But here we see doing the numerical value for 1 is 7. The word 7 also equals Eve in the middle. So Steve, of course, the S here, has been really present in all of this, and he was really present to be able to create what he did, devices that serve us in this modern world that we exist in right now. So we also have the same for his date of death or exit, and that means that it's another 7. And this is what we've always seen, that 7 plus 7 in this sense would be 14, and that coincides with Mother Eve again, which is 5, 4, 5. Adding this together is 14. It's the same thing of saying I am that, I am. Let's just put the other I am here. Okay, so I am is 9 plus 5. I don't want to add all these anymore because this is 4 plus 1 is 5, and this I is a numerical value of 9. That is 4, which is 13. So that is the God here again. 13 is 9 when we do the numerical value for the word 13. I am that. God is 13. This is the number for God. Okay, we have it as God, but we have looked at 13 where that encapsulates all the gods, like Christ had encapsulate the disciples. So I have covered that. But the dying, when Christ died and he is risen up, he becomes that 14th. He encapsulates all of that which he was in this realm and higher. And that's what we are talking about. And here we see that coincides with the zodiac signs. So if we added this together, this would be 14. So this is also 5 here. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14. So this is also direct correlation. I hope you are getting this. If we add 9 plus 5 is 14. Another 9 plus 5 is 14. That would be 28 if you want to do it like this. And 28 plus 13 would be 41. 1 plus 4 is 5. So this is another way of doing it. 1 plus 41 is the reverse here, or 14. So this is how Steve Jobs plays out, or played out in our, or Mother Eve plays out in our modern technology, you could say. So as I had drawn on the story of how I went to purchase a phone, and the assistant was telling me, well, you know, there's really not much difference between the iPad and this phone you have, which I must say I'm really enjoying the quality of the picture on there. And he said that, well, it's really, the only thing is, no matter what happens, the Apple, you know, does not lose its value um, in money form, or it, whatever it goes on, you know, and it maintains its value. This is the word he said. It maintains its value. So that means that the correlation, or the direct correlation that Steve Jobs had or shares with the story of Mother Eve and Christ, because the word Christ also equals 5, by the way, and those stories. So if you go through the series of whatever I've done with Steve, and you will see the correlation with that story. I'm hoping I could get the chance to put the other references in the description part. Um, but however, you will see that there is strong correlation. That also tells me, which is one of the ideas that I felt, that each of the gods, there is a god, just like the zodiac signs. It is the zodiac signs as well, that whether you are Taurus, Cancer, whatever it is, but even with the gods, that we have the said god, this made god, the moved god, the created god, planted god, and so on. All those blessed god, the breathed god, all those are in relation to one of those other gods. So it's the communication, or the vibration, or language we are choosing to use. And I believe that when you find your God that you work with, which by right we are meant to master all these gods. What I haven't really come across in this story of Steve Jobs is the number 13. But having said that, in Steve Jobs, where it comes to 9, it's the direct correlation as well. The word 13, I think I'll just stop on this one. And just really to show that it is really the same story as Christ, because Christ was 12, the 13th, or he was the 13th at the table with his 12 disciple. And of course, as I say, it's the he is the embodiment of the 12 disciples, meaning just like the zodiac signs, we are told that it is our job, like in Job, to master each sign. This is when we can ascend. Okay, 13, THIRTEEN, and this is 2899255. Adding this together is 15, 25, 30, 45, 45. 4 plus 5 is 9. Okay, so we can see that Steve Jobs and 9, of course Steve is 8 and Jobs is 1, so adding this together is 9, and we can see the correlation. That is the only other thing that was missing of all, to show the direct correlation of the story of Steve Jobs and Christ. We see Jesus, the word Jesus, also as 11. We also see 11 did show up as well. If we did the numerical value for 11, I did show where 11 did show up in Steve Jobs, but I don't clearly remember where. But if we go through the presentations, we can see that. Okay, so just to really wrap up, I feel that if we take the time to find the God that we are meant to work with, and of course, it's important we can ask the gods to work in unity instead of fighting with one another or being in disharmony. We can now get to understand the gods, because when we get to understand them, then they can help us work, or we can use the gods to help us work in harmony. And of course, final ascension. And of course, we don't necessarily, well, we see the example of Steve Jobs. He didn't really have to go on a cross, but he had his own crucifixion in a way, we could say. So I leave you with this, and I hope you have enjoyed this. Do have fun and join me again. Crime Queen.